you have a complaint about anything broadcast on this radio station?
Well, here we are again. Good to be here. Welcome to the Road to Recovery, the Road to Freedom with Mark. This is my half-hourly slot every Friday where I talk a little bit about my pet subject, which is depression, and something that I've suffered for a very long time. And it's basically just a message of hope to say that, you know, you're not alone in this and you're not the only one. And for a lot of people, it is a recoverable illness, and it is something that you can work from where you are to where you need to be. And it is a matter of laying it out in progressive steps to do one thing at a time. The most important thing is to see a doctor, a psychiatrist, whoever you need to see, get some decent medicine, get some decent sleep, and that's where it all begins. That's the first step. The second step is to talk to your friends and family, and if you can possibly just lay it on the line, not too thick, but just let them understand the situation that you're in. And you may not necessarily know what you need at the time, but it's just as long as they understand. And it can take a while for them to come around to fully realise. Different people suffer in different ways and different degrees. And it took my family quite a few years to come around, and I suffered alone for a long period of time, and it was very, very difficult times. What got me through was my friends, and, you know, since moving to Pahitura, I made quite a few friends, and I pretty much lost them all. And that's what happens. When I say friends, I'm talking about true friends, real friends who will stick by you no matter what. Unfortunately, you'll meet a lot of acquaintances who you'll call friends, and they will drop off, drift away, let you down, and I don't really have any clear advice on that, except to say you've got to learn to get up, dust yourself off, don't look back, keep on going, and stick with those who are true to you, and they will not let you down. You know, stick with those few true friends. You might have one. I'm lucky enough I got 4 or 5. So, yeah, they make a huge difference in your life. Well, Wings ran over a minute or two today, so we'll have to get on with today's story. Get cracking. I've got a good song for you today too. You'll like it very much. It's called Edible Flowers, and it's by Neil Finn. I like to keep the Kiwi music rolling with Arrow FM. Before I start my story today, I'd just like a special thanks to Michael and Veronica. Thank you very, very much for helping me, for making the difference, for giving me the opportunity to do this. We're looking for a sponsor, so if you know anyone who is looking for a show to sponsor, let us know. We'd be very appreciative. It'd be great to keep this thing going. Right, on with today's story, which is called A Big Tusker. The old mate, Tom for short, and I had been on the trail of a big boar for the last 2 days. Tom allows few others to hunt the 1,000 acres he lives on, so some of the boars get to a huge size. It is a rare privilege to be allowed to hunt a trophy animal, and we were hell-bent on bagging this one. Day 1, we came across the sign we were looking for, with rooted up thistles, a boar favourite, and shit the size of Coke cans. The dogs stuck to their task well and found the mob late in the day, but were unable to stop them. A single piglet, too small to be of consequence, was all we had to show despite our best efforts. Despite our initial failure, we became more determined to snare this huge beast. He would undoubtedly be sporting a huge set of tusks or hooks to match his size, and this was the prize we were truly after. We were also determined that the dogs should know what their main task in life is. Only a boar will truly test the mettle of a dog, be he finder or bailer. They must stick to the task and come through with the result, hopefully unharmed. Injury and even death is not uncommon for the dogs, but they love this life and they live for the days hunting in the bush. We had 5 dogs out for the job, 2 finders, Havoc and Quinn, who were half-brothers. Havoc black and tan and Quinn the grey. Both are light-boned and fast over the ground. They can cover vast distances over steep terrain and are ideally suited to the land. Between them they have flushed many huge hogs, the hooks of which are now displayed around the house, nailed to posts as trophies. Despite the lack of result on day 1, we were confident success was only a matter of time. The other 3 dogs we had were our bailers. Old Bob, who was Havoc and Quinn's dad, now getting on in years and injuries, he was near retirement, but still has a great temperament and is handy in a good scrap. Then there is young Meg, the half-sister to Havoc and Quinn. Yet to be tested, we are hoping she will take the lead from her older brothers, so we must have her on the leash for a while, whilst the find is on. For a bit of muscle we have added Fugly to the ranks. He is a true bailer, a mongrel pit bull type, typically short in the stride and tough in a fight. His name is short for effing ugly, due to his scars. We are probably a little light on bailers for a big mob, but Tom knows the land well and can swing us round upwind of a mob of pigs most times. So far, however, our prey has managed to elude us with a combination of luck, smarts and cunning. But time and the weather are on our side. At the end of day 1, we retire home empty-handed, having left the piglet in the bush. The dogs are uninjured and show only a little fatigue after a full day's hunt. Tom and I only give them a little food and water as we need them on top form for day 2. After watering the animals in their kennels, Tom and I retire for a good feed, a few smokes and tell a few stories before an early bedtime, ready for 5 o'clock start the next morning. Day 2 is still, dark and misty, as we check over the gear for the next morning's hunt. We travel light with only a sticking knife, binoculars, some twine, water bottle and Tom's trusty Winchester 30-30 lever-action rifle. Short and powerful, it is our trusty weapon for dropping big boars in tight spots. Kitted up, we let the barking excited dogs out of their kennels and they tear around like excited children, marking everything they can. As Tom kicks over the quad bike and I mount side saddle, the dogs jostle for a posse on the back tray or fall in behind as we descend the drive, with the headlight cutting through the dark. At first light we dismount the quad bike and again in silence we pick up the trail of the mob and follow down into the still damp bush, all wet, dark and spooky. Tracking down from an upwind position, the odds are well stacked in the finder's favour. Soon the finders are on the trail, but the mobs now seem spooked after yesterday's harassment and stay moving ahead of the dogs. As the morning wears on, we make contact a couple of times without a successful bail. Over one ridge after another, they lead us on a merry chase without any real contact until the heat of the day forces us to take a break, and we rest the dogs who return to us reluctantly. Over our lunch break, we discuss how to get back above and upwind of the mob, how we can force them down to the bottom creek if they break, and have a final crack at them down there. Around 1 o'clock we walk up the fire breaks till we are well above and upwind of the mob. First we send off the 2 finders, followed by the bailers 10 minutes later, in the hope that the pack will hit the mob simultaneously. At around 2 o'clock, despite the heat, we finally hear barking down at a wallow we found yesterday. It is a long way down from where we are, and as we run down we hear the bail, a break over another ridge, and a second bale. We are forced to swim our way through bracken and fallen trees, and I am thankful for the short rifle. We push on hard and finally come across 3 dogs attached to a good-sized sow. Being stretched 3 ways, she has little chance of escape, and I am able to reach in between 2 dogs and tip her up by grabbing a hind leg. Tom is then able to stick it as I hold it on its back. The sow was dispatched of with all efficiency, and its suffering is minimised. When gutted, all of its innards still quiver and pulse with ebbing energy. Although not the intended target, it is a good size, some 60 to 70 kilos, and makes for a hard haul up a ridge line until at last I collapse out onto the fire break. To conserve energy, we decide to walk back to the quad bike and drive back to the carcass. Only 3 dogs return to us, with the 2 finders still out after the boar, so we decide to wait up top in the hope they will manage to stop him and perhaps finish the day off brilliantly. After a couple of hours, the finders return, their necks and faces covered in blood, but without any obvious injuries. All of the dogs have come through to the end of today unscathed, and we have to satisfy ourselves with a good-sized sow. We are more determined than ever to corner the big boar, although the mob have now become wary and skittish. We return home, tired but still with plenty of light left in the day. We kindle the dogs, singe the pig, then Tom dresses the carcass in the chill house where it is left to set. We spend the rest of the afternoon preparing a big feed, smoking and drinking coffee. After dinner we clean the rifle and go over the plan for day 3 before heading to bed, not long after dark. Okay, we'll take a little bit of a break there and I'll play you some 660.
Everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants the same thing. To see another birthday. Look at all the pretty numbers. Look at all the pretty numbers scattered on the calendars. I can see my reflection. I can see my reflection in the shop window. That space, declare it if you dare tonight. Let the moment pass till another day. Bright lights dissolve like sugar deep inside you now. Same somehow. I'm hardly here at all. Yeah. All the trash and the treasure, all the trash and the treasure, all the pain and the pleasure. Taste the edible flowers, taste the edible flowers, scattered in the salad days. Who owns that space? Declare it if you dare tonight. Don't let the moment pass until another day. Bright lights to your soul, like sugar deep inside you now. Still the rain keeps coming down. I'm hardly here at all. Everything's gone quiet now. I'm hardly here at all.
Welcome back to The Road to Recovery, The Road to Freedom with Mark. Bright lights dissolve like sugar deep inside you now. Still the rain keeps coming down. I'm hardly here at all. Yeah, pretty magic stuff. That was actually Neil Finn, not 660. Alright, time is marching, so we've got to get cracking on with today's story. The Big Tusker. Day 3, we make another start before dawn. The dogs have no injuries and have lost none of their enthusiasm, tearing around like kids at play. We let them calm down a bit before we head off. Cool heads are required today if we are to finally get on to the Big Tusker. We decide to ride as little as possible today and walk in a few kilometres so as not to spook the mob. It is a slow trudge along the fire breaks, taking in a butte sunrise and mist rise off the bush. Birds are about everywhere, insects hum, and a light breeze of about 10 knots is again in our favour. We have a pretty good idea where the pigs will be and which way they are likely to break, as the mob seems to follow roughly the same journey every day. Up near the tops in the cool of the morning and working down to a wallow, then down to a flat creek near the bottom of the property in late afternoon. I am tired of the slog, but the prospect of a battle with the elusive boar keeps me going. The dogs have lost none of their enthusiasm, and Tom seems to be taking it all in his stride. The finders start to sweep, and a couple of hours tick by as our wary adversaries continue to elude us. At about 9 o'clock we finally hear a high-pitched bark as a finder suddenly strikes the mob down near the wallow. We are quickly in pursuit, just behind the balers, and I feel a renewed energy as I draw near the ensuing action. We hear the engagement break off, then restart over the next ridge. The going is steep, but I am driven on by what I am sure is a deep grunt, and then a squeal. We come up over the ridge to witness an all-in brawl on a steep slip face covered in flax. 3 dogs are onto a massive hog, well in excess of 120 kilos. The boar is holding his own, backing up the face and using his hooks to good advantage, keeping the dogs out in front of him. They cannot swing around on the steep face, and Tom tries to whistle up the other 2 dogs, hoping to use numbers to overwhelm this Goliath. The slip face is too steep for us to get on, and the dogs do their best to drive him to us, but the boar continues to back up and thrashes vicious-looking tusks at the dogs. Finally, the other two dogs turn up and enter the fray. The dogs are fearless, despite the huge and dangerous adversary. Slowly, superior numbers start to tell, and the dogs get to the boar's hind quarters to give him a stretch. The big hog simply grunts and thrashes around wildly, refusing to move from the safety of the slip face where he has more advantage. Mid-fight, Fugly is sent tumbling down the face, only to come roaring back up, and old Bob gets a hook in the guts, but is nimble enough to avoid serious injury. Tom and I are helpless bystanders until the dogs can force the boar off the slip face, as it is too steep for us and too dangerous for us to attempt shooting the beast with all the dogs on him. Despite the attentions of 5 willing dogs, the boar has us at a stalemate. He cannot back up much further, the dogs cannot turn him, and we cannot assist the dogs. The dogs, however, show their grit, and an hour-long battle ensues where no quarter is given, and I fear for the safety of the hounds. It would be a hell of a place to have to get an injured dog from. As the battle wears on, the big tusker slowly begins to tire, and the dogs begin to gain ascendancy, constantly attacking from all quarters with great tenacity, and they begin to pry him from the slip face. Driving from the hind quarters, they work the boar towards us on the ridge. Suddenly realising that he is beaten, the boar makes a dash for a gap between the dogs, but Tom is ready and draws a bead on the boar and peels off a shot as the pig reaches the ridge. The big tusker is felled by a beautiful heart-lung shot and lets out a grunt as he collapses on the ridge. The dogs pile in, their blood still up, and we pull them off as the life drains out of their adversary. At last we get to see the beast up close, and I am disappointed to see his tusks are uneven. A nice large even set is preferable. Still, they are a pretty impressive set. Got to go 100 kilos gutted, muses Tom, as he calms the dogs and draws his knife. We gut the pig on the ridge as he is too big to move elsewhere, the carcass being nearly as long as us, about 6 foot or 190 centimetres. Let's just take the head, I suggest hopefully, but Tom will have none of it. There are backstakes for us, a good photograph, and loads of dog tucker to be considered. So we tie the front and rear trotters together, and between us begin the arduous pull up the ridgeline. We have to stop a few times, battling the heat and the steepness of the ridge, but finally collapse exhausted onto the firebreak. The elation of finally capturing our foe gives us renewed energy as we stroll back to the quad bike with all the dogs in tow. Though old Bob took a poke and Fugly is smashing, the dogs are relatively unharmed and seem calm and very pleased with themselves. After an hour, we reach the quad bike and drive back to the boar with the dogs in tow. We have difficulty tying a huge boar on the back, and I must sit on the front to counterbalance the huge weight. We motor back slowly in the heat of the day like a couple of excited kids. Our quarry, though imperfect, is a real trophy and would win many a competition. Apart from its size, it has one large tusk and one broken one. It will make a fine addition to our Hall of Fame back at Tom's place. We arrive back in the afternoon for the obligatory photo session. With the pig on his back, the hog's backside nearly touches the ground, such is the length of the tusker. We hang it in the chill house with the sow from the day before, both singed and ready to be butchered. We then kennel the weary dogs with well-earned praise and a good feed of pig. Soon a brew and a feed are underway, and we settle down to clean the rifle and chat about the last few days, how the dogs did and what we could have done better. The elation of success still glowing warm in our tired bodies. After a shower, we cook up a big feed for tea, then sit on the porch smoking and telling stories till we fall asleep. I stumble off to bed, my head full of dreams of pig hunting that will replay themselves for years to come. The end. But looky there, we slipped in. We slipped into that 28-minute slot. Very nice. Always good to keep Michael happy. So, that's me for another week. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope you enjoyed the song. I've got a really interesting story coming up next week. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. In the meantime, if you know anyone that's suffering from depression, be that difference maker, be that good friend. And, you know, the rewards for saving a life, for helping a soul who really desperately needs it, they are more than any money you could ever imagine. True friendship, really good friendship, based on loyalty and trust, is something exceptional and extremely rare. In a lifetime, you'll be lucky if you find one like that. I am fortunate enough that I have a handful. Unfortunately, they're spread all over the country and none of them live in my hometown, but I certainly look forward to seeing them again and spending some time with my wonderful friends. Right, that's me for the week. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you again next week. Bye for now.